punitive tax measures. And then I get interested because I'm the one who actually drafted and submitted the finance bill, and I asked myself, which are these punitive tax measures that I'm not aware of? So let me read. And when I start reading, I see nothing. So I am really curious, what is really happening? Because someone says punitive tax bill, and then when you go into the details, they don't highlight those punitive or so-called punitive tax measures. Then I ask myself, is it politicizing the finance bill of 2026, which I don't want to allow to happen? Because, again, we must be a responsible nation. If there is something, a problem with the finance bill 2026, let's point it out, and then we deal with it. But let us not politicize. And in the spirit of that politicization, and that is what even now made me interested in addressing this matter again, I watched one of the leading lights in this country in terms of opposition politics, former vice president actually, someone who has been a minister in my government for so many years, and has been an MP for 28 years, decides to mislead the public. First, I watched his press conference, I think it was a press conference, and he said, reject the finance bill. So I was waiting to hear why would Kalonzo, of all people, ask for the finance bill to be rejected. Then he says that, that there are hidden provisions in the finance bill, and that one of them is that you will now, there will be no leasehold, that you will be taxed on leasehold property. And Honorable Kalonzo is a lawyer. I wish he could point out in the bill that is before the National Assembly, the clauses that are there, any clause that talks about leasehold land or freehold land and taxation. I have the bill with me, and the bill runs, the bill is a very easy to read bill, and it runs from page 953 to page here is 1074, and there is nowhere in this bill that talks about taxing land, freehold, leasehold, whatever hold. There is nothing here. Can Honorable Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka tell the people of Kenya the particular clause in the bill that we submitted to the National Assembly, which is being discussed now publicly, where it has touched on taxation of land or freehold or leasehold? I guess the Honorable Kalonzo wants to be the president of Kenya at one point. That is his ambition. He would not want, when he proposes or his government proposes a bill for raising revenue or tax raising measures or revenue raising measures to the National Assembly, for people to come and bring propaganda. To me, it is irresponsible of a leader of such stature to propagate propaganda, because I know he knows that is lying. Why would he lie to the people of Kenya that Finance Bill 2026 contains such a provision and it is not there? That is irresponsible politics. But let me just point out the second issue, that we are alive to the fact that the options of raising more taxes are limited, because Kenyans have complained loudly before of high taxation. We are also aware that we are limited options in borrowing money to finance our budget, which continues to increase, especially as a result of debt service cost. Therefore, we are very innovative and creative in this finance bill. How? We are focusing, and we've gone back to the basics of taxation. The basics of taxation ensures equity, ensures fairness, and ensures simplicity. Therefore, the proposals in this bill are going to enhance simplicity to help us in tax administration. Fairness. Let everyone who is supposed to pay tax pay their fair share of tax and pay it fairly. Equity. Let us treat people equally. If you're making money and you're paying tax, pay. Another person who is making money should also pay his fair share or her fair share of tax. That is what is in this bill. And that is what we are pushing forward. And that is what we are asking Kenyans to support. Don't accept to pay tax and your neighbor is not paying tax and they have the capacity, they have the ability, and they are making income. That is the kind of fairness, that is the kind of equity that you need in an economy. And our national tax policy is very clear on equity, on fairness, and inclusion in terms of paying taxes. So let me now address some of the issues that have not been accurately reported on. And when I finish, you can raise questions. Number one is the 25% excise duty on mobile phones. 25% excise duty on mobile phones. I want to address this issue because it keeps on recurring and coming back. In the debate in the social media, not alternative media, every media has been mentioning this. So this is my response. Public discussion has particularly focused on the proposed 25% excise duty on mobile phones, with some commentary framing the proposal as taxation targeting the youth, digital access, and online livelihoods. The National Treasury, however, wishes to clarify that the proposal does not introduce a new tax on mobile phones. Mobile phones are currently subject to multiple domestic taxes and levies during their importation and along the supply chain, which include the following. There is 16% VAT on all mobile phones. There is 10% excise duty as we speak. So excise duty is not new. There is already 10%. There is 25% import duty on mobile phones. There is 2.5% import declaration fee. And finally, there is 2% of railway development levy. These taxes and levies cumulatively create an aggregate tax burden of approximately 55.5% within the current mobile phone taxation framework. 55.5%. On the contrary, the proposal under the Finance Bill 2026 seeks to simplify. So simplicity that I talked about seeks to simplify the existing structure by replacing the current fragmented framework with a single 25% excise duty collected upon activation of the phone. And I have explained this before, that at the moment when the phone arrives at the point of entry, all these levies and taxes are charged. The customs duty, 25%, excise duty, 10%. There is VAT at the point of landing here, 16%. There is import declaration fee of 2.5%. And there is 2% of railway development levy. All that is charged when the phone arrives. Now, immediately the phone leaves the port of entry, there are other taxes because it is followed along the supply chain until it reaches the consumer or the customer. VAT will be charged at every single step. And you see the danger with that, and we have explained, is that phones that are brought and put in the store, which have not been sold, the vendor has already paid taxes, reducing their liquidity. We are saying we are replacing that, all that complicated system, with a simple one, where you bring the phone, there is no tax, there is no charges, there is no levy, but the time the phone is bought and is being activated is when you pay one single tax, that is excise duty at 25%. Tell me how that makes phones more expensive than the current arrangement. So if enacted, mobile phones will no longer be subject to 16% VAT, 2.5% import declaration fee, and a 2% railway development levy under the proposed framework. The 25% import duty will also be removed upon implementation of the new tax regime, thereby simplifying the tax structure and lowering the overall domestic tax burden applicable to mobile phones. The proposal was therefore primarily conceived as a tax simplification and rationalization measure rather than the introduction of a new tax on digital access. The National Treasury recognizes that mobile phones increasingly serve as essential tools for communication, education, financial access, online businesses, digital work, and youth economic participation, which explains the heightened public interest surrounding the proposal. So I want to stop there on mobile phones. That is a clarification we can give. It is so clear. It is so flowing. It is so simple. I don't know why this issue must always be debated when we have provided clarity. Why one would want us to have multiple taxes all over the place for mobile phones and cause people who are trading in mobile phones to pay taxes for phones they have not even sold. When we are saying, please allow us to only collect one tax at the time the phone is sold and is ready for use. The second one, and this one is also addressing the issue of equity and fairness. That is reporting requirements for virtual asset service providers. That is another one that keeps on coming up. So the Finance Bill of 2026 proposes the introduction of a reporting framework for virtual asset transactions through amendments to the Tax Procedures Act. Before I even proceed, it should be noted that virtual assets is a new phenomenon in town. It's a new concept in town. And anything new and it is producing revenue and producing income must also be subjected to tax in the spirit of fairness and equity, because there are other traditional businesses which are paying taxes. Why would new businesses be excluded from paying tax? So traditional businesses and financial transactions already operate within established accounting, record keeping and reporting systems, which make it possible to determine ownership, identify transactions, and facilitate administration of the tax system. The rapid growth of the digital and virtual asset transactions has, however, created a gap within the existing legal framework due to the absence of clear reporting obligations governing such transactions. So the proposal, therefore, seeks to apply reporting and record-keeping principles that are already common within traditional financial and commercial activities to the emerging virtual asset sector. We are just recognizing that there is a new kid in the block, a new sector coming in, virtual assets. They should be brought into the reporting system and reporting framework so that they also pay their fair share of taxes like other traditional financial and commercial activities.